welcome to Let's Talk with Parul. Such a pleasure to meet up with everybody again on this platform, a platform where we have conversations that need to happen. 2 months down in the lockdown, I think this is one conversation that's just been waiting. We've been talking about it in the group, on the Let's Talk with Parul Facebook group, about the key stressors and about the pressure points that mums have been facing while in lockdown. Lots of questions over there, lots of things to discuss, and we're going to be doing that in this episode. But to help me do that, to help me find some interesting key points and interesting perspectives, I have with me Dr. Shelja Sen, a therapist, writer, and co-founder Children First. Also a very familiar face on Monstresso, of course. And we have Kaveree Bamzai. She's a senior journalist and author, very well known. We've already talked about the book in some places, No Regrets, The Guilt-Free Women's Guide to a Good Life. So Kaveree, in fact, I'm going to start with you. How does one go through the lockdown mothering without guilt? I mean, there has been so much said and so much discussed, of course. Moms are feeling overwhelmed. At the end of the day, there is so much to do at every aspect of it. There is work from home, and now it's turning into work for home, which means that they feel they're not being able to give time to anything, in its entirety. And of course, there's guilt. So let's start talking about that, about the feeling of, a certain disproportionate load on women, on mothers.
Yeah, and I think Parul, having been through it myself, and I understand what others are, experiencing as well. I think this is a moment for us to actually take stock and adjust to what everyone calls the new normal. It's a terrible phrase, but I think it's something that we need to get used to. And I think I've always been propagating for a while, at least for a while, that we need to really reinvent the family unit. And I think this is an opportunity which, if we've not used already, whatever is left of the lockdown, and even if things open, there will be a sense that things are not going back to completely the way they were. I think we should use this time to readjust sort of household duties. That's one. I think that's very important, whether it's with our husbands, with our children. We need to understand that the woman cannot do everything alone. And I think in most households, that has been the case. Even in the most progressive households, you will find that the woman has had to do everything on her own. So I think this is one thing that was very important, and I hope we're able to do that. We're able to make to sit down with our families and to tell them, look, this is something that will keep happening now. This is something that we have to get used to. So let's share the burden. I think the second thing that I want to emphasize is that we need to understand the boundaries between parents and children, between siblings. For a while, I think those boundaries the parental authority had eroded, at least from the time when I grew up. For instance, our parents' authority was very clear and very demarcated. I think over the years, where Shelja will know that better, but whether you call that more a modern cooperative parenting style, I think we need to reclaim some of that authority, some of that parental authority. And even between siblings, we need to clarify boundaries, because as people are spending more and more time at home, the idea of privacy is very important. And I think, not everybody has big homes. Some people have very small homes. The idea that, we should not always live in each other's pockets. Families are wonderful and all that, but we should not always live in each other's pockets. We need to have a certain sense of individuality, which is very important for our emotional growth. And I think the last thing is really the whole idea, as you said, work from home has also become work for home. This is again something that's not going to go away. So we need to adjust to this new reality with a sharing of duties both within and outside the home. So it's not just domestic duties in terms of cleaning, cooking, caregiving, but also in terms of our duties outside the home, whether it's to our friends or whether it's to our parents who may not necessarily live with us, or whether it's even duties such as doing the grocery run, for instance, or the school run, for instance. I think all these are something that should be reviewed, and now is the time, because nobody can say no.
Absolutely. I think, in fact, that's a very different perspective of the way of looking at it, because we've been talking about, we are also socially conditioned to think in a certain way,
Yeah,
family roles, gender roles, my task, your task, woman's work, man's work. I
yeah,
think the start of the lockdown was, if I can use this word, a bit of a novelty factor where everybody said, oh, we'll pitch in, don't worry, we'll pitch in, we'll do
yeah,
this. The bachas were doing the bartan, and somebody, you
right,
had jharu pocha duties and everything. The fatigue has set in, the
yeah.
novelty for sure has gone, and we don't know how long this is going to go
Yeah,
on for. So suddenly, for one person, it's become an intense multitasking job. So, Shelja, what do you feel? I mean, do we really need to look at it from this point of view? Do we need to start redefining boundaries, or within the boundaries that exist, can we redefine, roles and tasks, and make it a more equitable way of living?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Kaveri, what Kaveri said, and what you are highlighting. Uh, the way the roles and identities have collapsed in the past few months in very, very small spaces. So, a mother who is a worker, who's working from home, is
Yeah.
parenting, is taking care of her children, is taking care of the household work, is also teaching the children, is also sometimes, when it's a larger family, taking care of the in-laws, right? The mother-in-law, the father-in-law.
Right.
So the kind of roles and identities have collapsed. And many times the burden of all of it fall on women. So novelty might, like you highlighted, might have been there initially, children doing the token things and dads doing the token thing. But end of the day, we know who's actually shouldering the burden. It is the women, right? And we also know that from the calls to the domestic violence or domestic rescue lines, telephone lines across the world have risen for both child abuse and for domestic violence. So we know it's not an easy time for women. And so that is one thing I would like to add. The other thing I would like to add here is that, I looked forward to reading Kaveri's book about guilt-free something. I'm sorry, what's it called,
Guilty
Kaveri?
Woman's Guide to a Good
Yeah,
Life.
I'm going to
A
talk
lot
about
of
it
hard
because,
work.
yes, I mean, having worked as a family therapist for more than 30 years now and being a parent myself, guilt is a middle name of every mom I've met. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
shame, guilt, constantly. And I think right now for moms, what they're going through, the guilt and the shame is another level
Yeah,
altogether. And it, for each, we in Children First, we have a mantra we repeat to ourselves. Each child is wired and inspired differently, but we have to
exactly.
understand each mother is also, each parent is also wired differently, and the circumstances of each parent and each mother is different. If you have a child with disability, you have a child who's wired differently, who's struggling at school, or you have a family structure where you're taking care of the children, you're taking care of your work, you're taking care of the in-laws, you're taking care of the household work. It's very, very different, right? So there is no comparison there. And in terms of the family structure, in terms of even the kind of privilege, the kind of background we come from, I mean, we are talking of mothers who come from a certain level of, who come from a privileged background. But what about mothers out there who who we can't reach? I mean, think about mothers we can't reach, and what's happening there, the level of violence or abuse, or um, the burden they have to carry is beyond my thinking also right now. So really, I think if this is the time, I would agree with both of you that this is the time we have to come together and redefine roles of women. And one thing I would highlight here, and which one news which shook COVID-19 a little, which is one news that shook COVID-19 a little from the spotlight, at least in Delhi, was the boys' locker room
Right.
Yeah.
story. And actually, I know there was a lot of horror, but I was, it was very heartening for me that something like this was not overlooked as boys will be boys, aisa to hota rehta hai. We started talking about it,
Right.
that became the central theme of a lot of conversations in our homes. So I think right now we have, women in India, across the world, are coming together with the Me Too, with everything that's happening. This is a time for women to come together across classes, across privilege, across wherever they are, to come together and redefine that role.
I
You're so right,
agree.
Shelja.
Yeah.
Please, ma'am.
Parul, may I just step in
Yes,
here?
please, please.
I agree with that, Shelja. And I think one of the most important things that we can learn from this is what we don't do, which is ask for help. Women generally tend to steer clear of asking for help. We think, we can do this. It's okay. We can handle it. Or our stock reaction to everything is, don't worry, I'll take care of it. You ask for help and then it doesn't come, and then you get irritated and you say, it's okay, I'll do it. I think we have to stop that. We have to stop ourselves from doing that. And I think the other thing that we have to do is to ask for help. And I think that is where we can resolve a lot of issues like domestic violence. And the other issue, which we don't talk about, but we must, is the idea of, living with less. Because we are, all of us, no matter which class we belong to, all of us are going through financial stress. All of us, there's some of us who are losing jobs. There's some of us who've had to take a pay cut. Everyone's lives have changed in terms of finance as well. So I think it's very important for us to understand, to make our families understand. And I think only we can do that, because as usual, the burden will fall on women. But I think this is one burden that they should take on willingly, is to learn to redo the household budget, to learn to live with less. And I always go back to my mothers and our mothers, and their example. Just let's go back to how they did it. Even if it means keeping a little ledger where you take down, the daily expenses. Lead by example here. And I think make our children and make everyone around us understand again the value of money. I think that's very, very important, because somewhere along the line, I think, because we come, at least I can talk about myself, I'm much older, I think, than all of you. I come from a generation which really saw the fruits of liberalization. And we grew up in socialist India, and then suddenly we saw a choice in everything. And it made us sort of, it made us sort of, and maybe not in terms of not value money so much, but it made us spend a lot, much more than our parents did, because there was so much more to spend on. I think we have to go back a little, take a step back, and to understand that, let us live more frugally, let us live more wisely, let us learn to live with less. And there, I think that's something that women should take the lead in, and the mothers should really, make that the mantra.
In fact, I think this has given us that opportunity. You're so right that this is the perfect time to actually sit back, take account, take stock, and
Yeah.
realize how much we really need.
Yeah, and you don't need so much, Parul.
We don't,
Yeah,
for sure. I think we realize that in terms of clothes, for sure,
yeah,
to start with, and also things that we have around us. At the end of the day, what are we doing with those things? They're just
exactly.
lying around.
I think,
Basically, what do we
yeah.
need? We need each other. We need
Yes.
to understand that we need each other. We need to understand that we are out there for our friends, for our families, for even co-workers who may be alone. A lot of our co-workers may be struggling, may be lonely, may be living a long way away from their families. We need to build those emotional networks, and I think also financial networks. If we need to help others who don't have as much as we do, let's do
Right.
it.
Right. Absolutely. So we had a small focus group with some moms, and we asked them these very questions as to what were the key stress points that they were going through currently. And in fact, Kaveri, to illustrate your point, one of the moms who lives in Bangalore, she and her husband works out of Chennai, so they travel to Chennai for the weekend. well, supposed weekend.
Yeah.
And the weekend turned into a lockdown. So what was their weekend packing, and I think the child is about 3 or 4 years old. So the weekend packing had just a small little bag of, essential one coloring book or something like that. And so, like you said, she said, I have learned to live in, recognize frugality and appreciate it and live with that in somebody else's house, that too. And not even in my own city, not surrounded by the things I have, but, it's things, life is going on. Everything is quite happy. The child is happy. The child has enough, is finding things to do. Everybody's settling down in a routine. Of course, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So
we
had
think,
a very
this is, sorry, if I can just come
Yes,
in
please,
here,
Shelja.
and I think this is something I've written a lot on also, less is more. And it's so important to highlight what Kaveree and you're talking about, because it's not only about the finances that our salaries have been cut, or the impact of, the whole the financial infrastructure coming crippling in the last few months and will continue to do so. It's also about the impact of it on the climate, right? We know this is just the trailer of the climate change and what it's impacting. And this whole thing of shopping, materialistic culture has fed this, right? The industries, the companies that are feeding it is being fed by this want more, give me more, earn more, and this, paying the bills. You're living your life to pay the bills that you're generating, and that hedonic treadmill that we all get caught in. I did an experiment once that I would not shop any clothes for a year. And it was so simple. I found that it freed my mind, because otherwise you're going out and you say, oh, let me buy this, let me buy this, let me buy this. It was one of the most liberating things, actually. Most of us have enough clothes to last us a lifetime.
More than that.
Yeah. So, and you think back of the way, like I look back at the way my grandmother, grandmother would, about her clothes, even her bed sheets, her embroidered pillowcases, which I had seen through my life. Taken care of, bought with a lot of bargaining and a lot of this thing, and care, washed and ironed and put back. The love and value for each and every item that was there in the home. It was not just not a something to use and throw away. It was something to love and enjoy and relish and keep. Maybe this is what we start doing more of.
Yeah, I think we needed this to get back to that sense of how we used to live. Our children don't know that, because they're children of liberalization, most of them, and you can call them entitled or you can call them privileged, but the fact is that they really don't know any better. So I think it is up to us, perhaps, to use this time. And they may think that we've gone mad, but it's all right. We need to tell them, no, this is really how we need to live now. And it may be hard, it may take getting used to, but let's do this together as a family.
So we had the focus group discussion I was telling you about. We have a small video which we're going to play for you now.
Sure.
And it'll show you some of the perspectives of moms in different situations.
Yeah.
Asa, if you can play that, please.
What's challenging, I realize, is that how do we make sure that I have a single child, right? I have just one son. So how do I keep him busy? And he's heavily into cricket. For somebody who is an outdoor kid, who is, he's played for nationals, he's, played for Haryana. And to keep an active child busy is, I think, really tough, because how much can you play cricket in the drawing room? Right? How much will I toss a ball?
Now, a completely outdoors kid doing hands-on stuff who's not used to TV or phone is now stuck in 2 rooms with nothing and just a mug. Initially, for 4 days, my husband had a bit of an itchy throat, so he was in quarantine in the office. The office was another room. So it's all a lot for a child to process suddenly, to say that, you go outside, you have to stay within 2 rooms and you can't meet your father, and you don't have this, you don't have that.
Yes, I have a 14-year-old son who has Down syndrome.
Right.
And I have a 9-year-old daughter. Right. As soon as the COVID thing, the lockdown happened and everybody was thrown out of gear. Suddenly, it's like my daughter's on this online course and Zoom happened and so many things happened. And somehow our accounts were not set up properly and I was not able to. My child was the only one in a class of 20 who couldn't get on the assignments properly. It was a nightmare. The first week, that was my night. My biggest stress was that online thing that was happening.
There's almost like, I feel like there is a sense of paranoia, right? I live in a place which got highlighted as a containment. And that really stressed all of us out because we were like, why is it a containment zone? I had questions like, are there many cases? Is it going to come to our house? What will happen if one of us gets it? If I get it, I need to go, mom, right? I mean, there are all of these questions. And now even cough or one little sneeze, gets our attention, right?
I initially itself tried restricting conversations on coronavirus because one, I was getting tired of it and I didn't want my child to know either. But despite that, it's very hard to not talk about it at all or stray conversation, and that was scaring him a lot. And he was like, am I going to die? And we said, like, no, you're indoors, you're being safe, you're not going to die. Then he realized his father was going out for groceries and stuff. So the next question was, is my father going to die? These are things that were going on in his mind, and he was having trouble. And I initially felt a lot of resistance from him for the change, and it settled down now. I had to do a lot of thinking about how I needed to deal with him. Right. So I had to change myself, and I got out of WhatsApp groups. I stopped reading coronavirus news. I stopped talking about it, and I started engaging with him a lot.
It's my stress, it's not his. Because he is a Down syndrome boy, he's already vulnerable as far as respiratory illnesses are concerned. A normal cold for us can lead to pneumonia in my boy in no time if we are not careful. So his health is the main thing. And I have an old mom, right? She's in her 80s. And I have two really vulnerable people in the house with me.
Right now is not the time that I can control screen time. And also when I try and control it and there's a lot of pushback, there's a clash that takes place. I mean, it's not that I have something better for him to do. I mean, considering that both my husband and I are working and we've got intense jobs right now, there's only this much in between. We do try and say, oh, let's play a game of bluff or let's play snakes and ladder. But beyond a point, there is not much that we could do. So, kind of letting him also figure out, what he wants to do is something that I think mentally has helped me.
Now my daughter, she's 9 and she's that pre-puberty age. I don't know what's really going on. They're going along with everything that we are doing, and we don't show ourselves as stressed. So they probably don't perceive the whole situation as a threat. To have somebody to talk to at this time is wonderful. They're cut off from their friends. They're cut off from school. School is great for socialization.
The other thing, Parul, that we're not used to is having the entire family home for all 3 meals.
Of course.
And, that's tough.
I'm going to react to that last bit first. Nobody is used to having the whole family home the whole day for all 3 meals.
Yes.
I think moms are going nuts trying to just, feed the battalions. Yes. But, all of this put together just brought out one point for me, an overall point. Look at the mental load.
Yeah.
As a mother, you're trying to take care of, keeping your child occupied, an active child who's, used to being outdoors. The whole health risk and the health scare is on your mind all the time. You're managing screen time. You're managing homeschooling, digital study. Look at it's obviously a very huge mental load that women are bearing currently. Let's talk about that, and I'd like both of you to weigh in on this point. Let's start with you, Shelja. You must be seeing a lot of this coming, across in the cases that you're talking to, the people you're talking to.
When I was listening to this, when I was watching this video, my heart went out to that mom who said, "I have a child with Downs, and I have a mother who's 80 plus, and my cold can give him a pneumonia." And how vulnerable, like I was talking about, each family is different. What she is facing and what she is going through is very different from other families, right? So I think, that's the most important thing. First thing I would say to all moms there is you need to take care of yourself. The dominant discourse around caring that we were talking about is that mothers are supposed to take care. Mothers are supposed to feed. It's all the discourse around the caring is a woman's job starts very early. For little girls, they're given dolls, take care of the doll, and all the time they're told in school, every space you got to take care. Really, you need to question that. Why do women need to take care? And I think somewhere it's reinforced. Oh, she's such a caring person. She's such a caring. We need to question that. It's great to be caring, but men need to be caring too. So we need to step back and say, okay, I can do this much of caring, and let men do more caring here. And this is so important. Like, I know in my home, caring is done by my husband. Cooking is done by my husband. Caring is done by my husband. I do my bit of caring, but I have stepped back and say, okay, you do more caring, because he's a more caring person, so that my children can also see that it doesn't have to be that women do caring and men don't do caring. So I think I would definitely want to question this dominant discourse around caring, and how women need to take care of themselves in whatever way they can. Second thing that I think the video brought up, which is very important, is that sometimes we don't know what children are going through. I have 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds telling me my grandparents are going to die, my parents are going to die. And because they can't tell their parents, because parents are too scared to hear them, to listen to their fears. So what I believe is that we have to keep our eyes and hearts open for our children. The stress of COVID is like, polluted air which is around us all the time. That's why we feel exhausted all the time, because we are breathing it in. And sometimes children face a triple jeopardy. First is, they themselves don't know that they're going through stress and they can't label it. Second is, as parents, we are going through so much of it. Third is, as society, we don't think the children need much of caring. We think it's parents, children can be left on their own, they're resilient and they can be taken care of. But children are going through a lot. Most importantly, asking them rather than imposing on them all the time. I'm not saying that means that they can get away with everything, but something as simple as if you have a child of 5 or 6, you give a 10-finger exercise, that these are 5 things. What are 5 things you want to do? 5 things mom wants you to do or dad wants you to do. So you're giving them choices. You are giving them spaces. Okay, if a young person who's like 16 or 17 or 18, like I have an 18-year-old and I have a 22-year-old, I know this is tough time for them. I have a daughter who has been in lockdown from November. She's a batch of 2020. She's been in lockdown from November. She hasn't hardly come out of the house. She has hardly stepped out of the house. And then her boards were postponed in the middle of these exams. It's a different kind of level of stress she's facing, a different level of stress my 22-year-old. So we have to give each other space also. This is a time we have to drop the rope. This is not the time for tug of war. This is not the time for teaching them a lesson. This is not the time to sit down and you have to, this whole thing of be productive, learn a skill, let it be. That's
Right.
the most important thing.
Right.
I agree, Shelja. The other point I want to highlight, taking off from what you were saying, our children are cut off from their friends. They're cut off from school. I, like you, have an 18-year-old whose boards were again interrupted. He has one exam yet to go. And then, a whole lot of these entrance exams that he was trying to prepare for. So that kind of uncertainty is so baffling, even for a soon to be 18-year-old. It's something that they're not used to. So I think the conversations that we can have with them, even if it's one-sided, even if it's just listening to them, I think we have to make an effort to do that, because I think somewhere down the line we've forgotten the art of listening to each other, the art of talking to each other. We have to go back to that. And sometimes, my son will pull me up and say, you're not listening to what I'm saying, and it could be something quite ordinary. But I have to really then stop what I'm doing, or my husband has to stop what he's doing and really listen to him. But I think that is very important, and keeping our ears and eyes open, because this is the time when, slipping into depression is all too easy, especially for these kids, all that horror, those hormones and,
Yes.
being away from each other. I cannot even imagine what it's like. We can't get into their heads. I think even you can't, although you've been
Yes,
trained
absolutely.
to do that. But I can't even imagine what he must be going through. So I think we have to just sort of just maybe pay a little more attention to them, make sure that there's nothing untoward happening with them, keep a watch on their moods, because I think depression is really something that they could just slip into, and we won't even know, and then that's lethal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So whenever Shelja is on Mom's Presso, we always get a horde of questions. And since the promo was put up the day before yesterday, we did get a few questions and we compiled them very quickly. So again, it's a very short 2-minute video. Shelja, the questions will come one after the other, but I will take them up and or in the order that you'd like to answer them. There are 4 or 5 generic questions which have been coming even on the group and even by the people who posted it in the video. So Asta, if we can please have the video, the questions video.
What I'd really like to ask Shelja is, if I'm wondering if my children are actually dealing with the whole aspect of the shutdown really well, or is it something that they've kind of are scared about and have internalized, and they do have their share of meltdowns here and there, but in general they just seem to be okay. I'm wondering if that's something that's kind of internalized, if there's some way to maybe ask them more questions and is everything fine? Are you dealing with this all right? That's basically my question.
Okay, so my question is that, with times being such, the little one, she's doing everything on her own and we being busy with our, working schedules, etc. So I feel there is probably a lot of frustration inside her that she's not able to take out, which is the reason she's having a lot of frequent meltdowns, and that becomes a problem to handle. Though I try to calm her down, sometimes, I have yelled at her also, and then I feel guilty obviously about that fact, but how should I really control this? Because I want to control this at this particular age, so that growing up years she doesn't have this problem of anger or meltdowns, breakdowns, etc. So that's what I want to know.
And how do I ensure that my child is not anxious about health when things do get better? I want him to embrace life joyfully and feel safe. And how do I kind of make sure that that's something that he's able to achieve after whatever it is that we've gone through?
My question to Dr. Sen would be, how do I make sure that my anxiety is not passed on to my child, and how can I make sure that I'm able to maintain a balance in the house vis-a-vis the mental health of all the family members?
I would really want help with dealing with husbands who are getting
Okay.
So, not so much with the kids.
How can I go back to becoming a spouse? I believe in all these years of being a parent, I've become so much of a parent that I've forgotten how to be a spouse. I want to rekindle that relationship between the two of us, no matter what the stress levels are.
Once again, Shelja, let's work backwards.
Lots of questions there. I missed that bit about the husband. I was very curious to know about the husband.
She says, I can deal with my child. Please give me some tips on how do I deal with my husband who's always in my way. And then, of course, Meenakshi's question about, being a spouse once again and having got carried away in all these years of being a parent. Yeah. So she says, I want to rekindle that feeling between the two of us. Maybe we can just start from there. Kaveree, please feel free to weigh in because you've got tremendous experience.
I'm more interested in listening to Shelja.
Okay. So I think this rekindling thing is a very interesting one. How can we rekindle that? Because we're so caught up in our roles of taking care of our children, doing our work, household chores, that we don't get time. And I think that is most importantly here is if we are able to, as a family, have a certain rhythm to the day. It's not possible depending on the age of the children, because nowadays young people might be getting up much later. Their rhythms are very different from ours, and we can't change it, because what are they getting up for? So there's no point creating a battleground there. But if there's certain rhythms we create in the day, and there is certain time that the couple keep for themselves, and they keep for themselves at this time that we would like to be on our own. So wherever it could be, sitting in the balcony or in the living room or in their bedroom, where they are able to say, okay, let's push aside all talk of COVID-19 or financial difficulties or children's education or their future, put it just aside and be playful, have fun, laugh together, have fun together. I'm a great campaigner for playfulness. Working with children, I use this concept of PQ, which is a playfulness quotient, and how much of the playfulness, if you're able to do that, laugh together, have fun together, listen to music together, dance together, cook together, have a glass of wine together, do things which give us a sense of lightness, joy, and saying that, okay, whatever life is short or whatever the COVID is going to bring, right now I'm committed to making this relationship my anchor and having fun together. I think that is a single message I would have for all couples out there who are, whatever their gender and whatever their sexuality or whatever their orientation.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest thing to do currently. At least it's in our control. One can do it.
Yes.
Okay. So the other question which came up was about children not really showing, anything. So basically, if I rephrase that question, is my kids are fine. What's wrong with them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they really internalizing something? Do I need to probe, or should I just be happy that they're okay?
Children are going through, because working with children ourselves, we know children might act, as if everything is okay, but somewhere we have to keep our eyes, our ears, and more than anything, our hearts open for them. So it could be in terms of a child who's crying more, a child who is not sleeping well, or who's not eating well, or is getting angry, more tantrums, or getting into fights with the brother, or getting angry with the parents. It could come through in different ways. Any changes that you're seeing in your child, which is unusual, you have to pick it up. You have to really understand that children might be, they themselves cannot label what they're going through. They don't say, oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling worried. Something as simple as which I do with a lot of children I work with, is take out a paper and crayons and make a bag with lots of pockets and say, this is our bag of worry. Right now, different pockets have different worries, because just asking them, what are you worried about, they're not going to come up with anything, because they don't know. So then you could say, sometime, what is worry? Worry is something that makes you feel like, could be little fears we have, little scares we have. What if this happens? What if that happens? And you could share a worry of yours, which is appropriate for that age, for that particular child. So you might say, sometimes I worry about that I have to next time I go for shopping, will I get my this particular thing I like to eat, something very small. Or sometimes I worry about if suppose I get a little throat pain, I worry about, why am I getting this throat pain, something appropriate to the age. Let children talk about what they're feeling, to put it in different pockets, what their fears are, and then talk about which of these fears is realistic and which is a fear which is actually silly fear. Children talk about silly fear. I feel you will die, or I feel that will happen, or something like that. And you have to help them understand, we are taking care of ourselves. Make a list of things you're doing, things within our control. Children need to have a sense of control. What are we doing to, we are making sure that nobody comes into our home. We are making sure that we wash our hands regularly. We maintain social distance when I go out. I wear a mask. I only go to these kind of stores which maintains hygiene. So these kind of things you maintain. So children, when they have a certain sense of control, they are okay with it. But again, a lot of it is to do with this, the way this kid described it as a free floating anxiety, like a polluted air. You need to be aware of that. If there is a level of stress around at home, children are like sponges, and they'll soak it up. So you will have to be very, very careful about the way the worry is around our homes. If you have to talk, the grown-ups have to talk about financial difficulties or health issues that are coming up, they need to have a separate space to discuss that. However, when they are with the children, try to make it more lighter, but anyway, having these discussions. Another very important thing either to build communication is, what I call the you, me, we approach. When with children, asking them, suppose there's any kind of a conflict, they're upset about something, they want to watch more TV or whatever, asking them first, what is it that is troubling you? And then talking about me, so then you go on to my perspective and then you reach a negotiation together. So a you me we approach, asking them, spending time with them, using art, using stories, using or with young people, with young people who are above 15, 16, asking them, let's sit and talk, is not going to work. They're going to walk off. They don't like that, right? So just suppose you just go into their room and sit down. Don't ask questions. They are averse to it. They're averse to, allergic to lectures and all that they've been hearing over the years. So just sit there and sit with your book or a cup of coffee and say, I'm just sitting around. Just be interested in their lives. They'll come and talk to you themselves, as long as you're non-judgmental, as long as you are not, finding faults, and you're creating an emotionally safe space at home.
I think that also answers Kriti's question about how do I make sure I don't transfer anxiety to my child, my anxiety to my child.
Yeah.
So like you said, having your conversation separately and, having the lighter and the more positive but realistic conversations.
And, like this, I like to say that right now it seems very frivolous to talk about joy, but more than ever, we need to practice joy in whatever way we can. It has to be, like I say, it has to be daily, it has to be deliberate, it's a practice. Every day in the morning, you get up and say, I'm going to do these 5 things, call it a 5 joy diet. These are 5 things I'm going to do in the day to find joy. Be playful, be silly, have fun. Children need to see their parents having fun. If their parents are okay emotionally, they will be okay.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's the key point. Yeah. Oxygen mask first.
Absolutely.
Right. Just very related to this question, and I know you already answered quite a bit of it, is the behavioral issues, the tantrums, the meltdowns. So, of course, a lot of it can be taken care of by the kind of conversations that you've just suggested. Is there anything else that parents need to do, especially when they're faced with young children throwing tantrums that, that may not really have an immediate cause?
Yeah. So first of all, I would ask the parent, it's always, because sometimes it's just a tantrum, that's a reaction, right? That's a symptom. We need to step back and think what's really happening. So first question I would ask the parent is, what is your stress level at home? Is there too much of stress? Second question I would ask the parent is, what's your emotional bank account look like with your child? Are you making deposits or only withdrawals are happening? If it's, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And this is the time, like I've said earlier, you have to drop the rope. You can't have a tug of war. If you're a perfectionist parent, it's not going to work out. Right now, bare minimum, if the child is not taking a bath every day, or the child has not done the homework, or is not eating the most nutritious meal, it's okay. Please let it be. Let it be. So, of course, first of all, ask yourself, how's your emotional bank account? When children are upset, asking them, rather than saying you're being a bad boy, you're being very difficult, you're being very naughty, sitting with them and understanding what they are going through. Empathize with them. Suppose he says, I can't meet my friend, I want more time on TV, or whatever the issue is. Empathize with them. Be compassionate, empathize with them, try to understand where they're coming from. And most importantly, when you have understood them, and hug them. That doesn't mean you always give to the tantrum, but you hug them, you give them a lot of love, that I know it is tough for you. I know it's not easy for you. Let's see how we can make it better. So then you are, as long as you're being compassionate there. And the other thing that I would say is, give a lot of recognition to children, not praise, but recognition. Recognition in the sense, what I talk, in the movie Avatar, the way children, the Navis greeted each other with "I see you."
I see you, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that, because that, that's thing that right now Everybody wants to be seen. Why are we having so many of these Facebook lives, Insta lives, webinars? All of us, we all want to be seen. Children have no space to be seen. And so if we can just, when we see children, maintain eye contact, look at them, smile at them, every time they do something and you say, that was so caring, that was so considerate, that was so generous. Doing little things to give them a sense of recognition, because they were getting that recognition from the teachers, they were getting it from their friends, they were getting, here we are so caught up in our work that we have stopped looking at our children. So they need to get an extra dose from us.
I love that, Shelja. That's ICU is just so beautiful. It's something all of us can. Again, we need it too. Like
we all need it. We all need it.
My last question is really something which Kaveree, all of us need to answer, and I'd really love for you to weigh in on this as well. It's about getting out of this, whatever it is, whenever we do get out of it. In fact, Manika's question was very specifically about, I don't want my child to be paranoid about his health all the time. We've already created this one sneeze and everybody's, oh my God, are you all right? Do you have breathing problems? Can you taste things properly? Let me check your temperature. Of course, we're already in this paranoid situation. Are we going to live like that? Is that our future? And of course, for the children, but even for the adults, is really what are we going to get out of this period with? What kind of paranoia are we going to be living with?
I think rather than paranoia, we have to look at, prevention. And I think that's, again, one of the lessons for me from this lockdown is really, all that we were told about boosting our immunity, doing exercise, doing yoga, living a life of balance, of moderation, eating moderately, exercising. I think we all have to go back to those very basics of living. And we have to inculcate that in our children as well. Sometimes our children teach us. Sometimes we can show them by example. But we have to understand, instead of getting paranoid about what's going wrong with us, we have to look at how do we build ourselves to be better, stronger, more immune. I think that's much more important. And I think just to take from what Shelja always says, and I believe in that completely. The title of a book, all you need really is love. And I think all you need really is to take care of each other and to look out for each other. And whether it's emotionally or whether it's looking at each other's physical health or what we're eating, how we're exercising, we need to be more mindful of that. And if we do that as a family, and if we do that for each other, for our friends, for our relatives, I think that's good enough.
I'm just looking up at my bookshelf. I have both your books right here.
So I think that's good enough. And I think we really should practice that. But practice that, more mindfully. Do that, make sure that we do that.
So the idea is not to get into that paranoia trap, but rather into thinking about the preventive steps and the whole.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at, I think you have to look at every solution rather than at the problem. So I think that is what this lockdown has taught me, that, you can't get bogged down in what the problem is. You really have to look at solutions and long-term and sustainable solutions, which will really change the way we live.
Absolutely right. Shelja?
I totally agree with Kaveree. That's a mantra for life. All you need is love.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. And I think love is a practice. There are times when I get up in the morning and love is the last thing I'm feeling. And it just takes me going to the balcony and overlooking the trees. And I kind of try to connect to that sense of love within my heart for my family, for my children first community, for all living beings actually. And it really, really helps me. And I think, we hear a lot about the survival of the fittest, but I think the only thing that has made human species survive till this 2 millennia and is going to be hope for the future is survival of the kindest.
Yeah.
And I think we need that kindness. We need to go kindness, go viral.
Right. That's such a great point. And that's something that even the recordings on all of these pre-recorded COVID messages say that Bimar se nahi daro, bimari se daro. So, paranoia is only between people, right? People to people. So like you said, a little bit of kindness, a little bit of problem, instead of looking at the problem, look at the solution. It's a very easy approach that we can all put into place already. Thank you so much, Kaveree and Shelja. This has been such a great discussion this evening.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to Nyampresso and Parul. Wonderful.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, and really learning experience for me as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And of course, thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelja. That was really great.
Lovely. Thanks a lot. You take care. See you. Bye.
You
bye.
too. Bye. Bye.